All right, welcome to our May Canandaigua Lake TU meeting. This is our monthly Zoom meeting. Beautiful day. And got a lot of ground to cover tonight, so I'll quickly go through the business part of the meeting, the usual couple of things we do here. And then we have two really good speakers tonight, and our theme tonight is about our home river for their chapter, the Cohocton River. And we'll be doing a lot of kind of profiling of this really wonderful stream that's in our territory, and that's really our TU responsibility. So and welcome everyone who came. We have a really big attendance tonight. We got 34 folks online, which breaks our Zoom record since we started doing this. And thank you to Orvis, because they seem to, their email that they sent out promoting our meeting has really brought a lot of new folks. So if you've never been to our meeting, thank you for attending and welcome. Okay, we always like to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. So remove your hats and let's recite the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which
it stands,
one
nation
nation
under God,
indivisible, with liberty
liberty,
and
justice for all. Thank you. Okay, I always like to start off with, we're getting some nice fish pictures. This is really happy hour this month for fishing. So here's some photos that Scott sent us of big smallmouth bass he's caught. These are tributary fish. You get that spawn and post-spawn run of smallmouths, which can really be fun. And then this is one of his clients, first-time fisherwoman who caught a really nice steelhead, went out with him. Looks like a beautiful day there. And a lot of people are sending us trout pictures, a lot of nice brown trout pictures. And these are from various streams. These are actually from our Facebook fans that are posting these photos for us. I like this one on the right with all the red spots on it. That was a really pretty one there. So lots of get out there if you haven't gotten yet. This is the month. And here's our photogenic member Tyler. He always has some good pictures. A nice wild brook trout he caught in a secret spot around here. And then he was had a good day on the lower Niagara River. That's a white bass he's got in his hand there. He was catching some smallmouth that day too. So he always catches a lot of different species. And once again, thank you if you've never been to our meetings, and anyone who's new here. We won't introduce everyone here. We got kind of a big crowd. Just a quick social media update. We have our Facebook group. If you use Facebook, it's a nice place to share photos and tell fish tales. And we're up to 316 people in our Facebook group. And also our membership has jumped from our last meeting. We're up to 187 members now. So that's going in the right direction there. And we do a lot of things online. We put our newsletter out on Facebook. And a new thing we've done is we open our new YouTube channel. And we've been recording all our meetings. We're recording this one, in fact. And then we put the recordings out on our YouTube channel. So if you go onto YouTube and just search for Canandaigua Lake TU, you can see our April, March, and February meetings on there, plus the films we played in December, the ones with Lee Wolf and Ted Williams. All of those I rounded up and attached them there. So getting some nice videos on there. Especially if you didn't make the April meeting, I urge you to go watch that one. That was a really good meeting we had with our two leases. Future meetings, this is probably our last Zoom meeting. In fact, it is our last Zoom meeting of the season. Our next two things we're going to do in June, we're going to do outside and get together. We're going to have a picnic. We started doing this as kind of an annual event at Ontario County Park in South Bristol. And I just fool with the video here for a second. There we go. That's one. And so we'll be sending invitations out with directions so we can get kind of a head count for the park and also know how much food to bring. So mark that date down. It's actually the day after the summer solstice, June 21st at Ontario Park. And there's also a pond there on the park, so bring your fly rod, and maybe we'll have a friendly competition, see who can catch the most small sunfish. Speaking of sunfish and bass, as you get into the summer, we'll transition from trout fishing as it gets warmer into bass and panfish fishing. And I just got notified the other day that the venue that I wanted to hold a kind of informal fishing event in July 19th, was approved. And I'll send out more details as those get firmed up. But it's a really good venue in a park that normally is not open to the general public, but well, we're kind of making a deal with them and hopefully do some fishing education events in exchange for letting all of us fish there. So stay tuned. That's in July 19th, and we'll send out more information on that. And in August, we don't hold meetings, but we will have a meeting to kind of plan out the next season, September 21 and 22 season. And our first meeting of the new season will be September 13th. And our theme is always how I spent my summer vacation. And we will, God willing, we're going to be back in person, and we'll be back at the American Legion and back seeing everyone's smiling faces in person again. And if we really get our act together, we'll also try to continue to stream the meetings on Zoom and record them. So, but we're changing our schedule up slightly. We will, for years and years, we've always met on the third Monday of each month during the season. We're changing that up a little bit, and we're going to meet going forward on the second Monday. So the second Monday of September is the 13th, and the second Monday of October is October 11th. So a little slight change in schedule. We're doing that so you know, we aren't holding our meetings the same week that the Seth Green TU chapter is. So we'll get some kind of have our meeting one week and theirs another week. And let's see what else. This is a plug in case anyone wants to learn how to fly fish. Orvis has their online fly fishing 101 course, and you can just go onto the link under the Rochester store to sign up for it. And then also anyone taking the course, they're offering a free one-on-one instruction at the Pittsford Plaza store. So if you know anyone that wants to learn how to fly fish, let them know about that. I was kidding Jim. I was at the store there, and I said, "This is illustration is kind of how not to fly cast. So unless you're casting backwards, that's. But you don't want that rod going that far back." And this is my plea for volunteers, and we actually are getting some. Had some people step up specifically on our new website project. And that's being led by John and Chris, and it's actually getting very close to going live. John has done a lot of work for it, and we'll pretty shortly have our new site online. So be on the lookout for that. We'll send hopefully a notification out maybe by our June newsletter. And there'll be some new links on there. There'll be a brand new conservation section. We'll be able to contact us by email through the website, and to pay for the website and all these other technical things we've had to do, we're going to put a donation link on there. So that's pretty exciting stuff here. So thanks to John and Chris for all the work they've done on this so far. This is actually a look at what the new homepage is going to look like. Let's see, Al, I put the conservation updates on here. So you want to mention anything as well as the talk you'll give us in a little bit?
Okay. Well, I just mentioned quickly, we've been real busy this spring. In April, we went down and fixed up over 100 tree tubes that had fallen down over the winter. You know, you got to put the tree tubes or something up to protect the trees, or they don't last very long. So we went down in April and fixed up some tree tubes. On one day, I had a team of 11 folks down, and we planted about 120 trees and protected them along the Cohocton. On this coming Thursday, I've got another crew going down, and we're gonna do some cleanup work along the Cohocton, but then we're also gonna plant some more trees, a small number of trees down by Avoca, and we'll see how the time goes. We may also end up going over and trying to water the trees that we planted on 1 May, because it's been a little dry the last few days, and if we can get over there, it'd be good to water them. So we've been real busy. We've also been working on our big new habitat improvement program, the Crossroads project, but I'll talk about that a little more a little later.
Okay, great. Let's see. Is Will on? I thought I saw him join. You could give us an update on Project Healing Waters if there is an update. I know Max is on too.
Actually, Max and John and I are going to have a Zoom call Thursday evening. They're starting to allow and encourage in-person instructions outside, and we're not one of the chapters that are doing that. They have certain chapters that they've selected to do it on a trial basis. And so they're slowly getting back into doing what we had done before. We have a problem in that the Canandaigua VA is undergoing renovation. So the place where we used to go to work with the vets that were in the hospital or in-house is no longer functioning at the moment. So we have some changes we have to make. We are not going to have the June 19th, 2021 fly fishing outing. The uncertainty made it difficult to plan that. So we're simply just not going to do it. We're going to hopefully aim for 2022 with the June 19th or whatever date it is in June of 2022. When we are allowed to go back into the fourth Tuesday of every month evening sessions with the Canandaigua VA, we will be letting everyone know, and we will be looking for volunteers to come in and tie flies with the vets, teach them how to tie flies, and also teach them how to cast a fly rod. We do it all inside. We've been trying to get more outside activities, and we're currently working on that. So that's the current status. Max, did I forget anything?
No, you covered it pretty well. Now, the domiciliary where we got most of our veterans to teach, the domiciliary has been moved down to the Bath VA at this point. And the idea is that when the construction at the Canandaigua VA is done, the domiciliary will be coming back to Canandaigua, and we'll see how that works. But one reason we're not having the picnic is that we don't have a good feel for what's going on in Bath with their domiciliary or context yet, so we're working on it.
All right, good. So we're all looking forward to doing that. Sounds like next season we might be back in the groove again, which I know everyone will look forward to, is because it's very meaningful to participate in this program, especially the picnic and the fishing with the vets. So. Okay, so on that note, and I'm right on time here, I'd like to finish this part in about 15 minutes. Let's get to the meat of the program and talk about, I'm going to introduce our guest speaker, who everyone in the chapter knows very well, Al Kraus, who's our conservation chairman. a little biography of Al that he's given us is Al was a career engineer officer in the United States Army for 30 years and retired as a colonel in 1996. And shortly after he retired, he moved to Canandaigua and joined our TU chapter. And not long after that, Al started organizing and leading our conservation projects, which is what we are really well known for in TU National is our conservation work. And he's been fly tying and fly fishing since he was a teenager, and he's particularly fond of dry fly fishing. So let me shut this screen off and bring up Al's presentation. And there we go. Let me know, Al, if you can see that.
I can see it. Well, first of all, I'd just like to say I'm just very happy to see so many people tuning in and showing an interest in what the Canandaigua Lake chapter is doing, and hopefully this is a good sign of things to do and continued support for what we're doing. So if we can go to the first slide there, Gordon.
Okay.
Well, the Cohocton, I know some of you may not have even been down to the Cohocton River, but it's a beautiful river. It kind of, there's nothing very much straight on the Cohocton River. It meanders all through the countryside, through a lot of farmland, woodlands, and it's a good thing it doesn't really flow very close to, it goes through a few small villages, but it's pretty much a rural river. It's a pretty long river, about 60 miles long, and it's basically eventually runs into the Chesapeake Bay. One of the things I was real interested to learn is that the Cohocton, which is the Iraqi Iroquois term, and they called it Gahato, which basically means trees and water. And if any of you have spent any time down the Cohocton, or particularly if you ever helped float stock the Cohocton, there's plenty of trees in the water. Always surprises in the spring to see the new crop of trees that have fallen down and into the water. So the Iroquois definitely got it right when they named it after trees in the water. Not long after I got here, I definitely took an interest in the Cohocton River, and basically we have been treating that as our home waters because it's really the closest year-round trout stream to our home area here in Canandaigua. So we've considered our home waters for quite a while, but we also shared the river with the Cohocton Valley chapter. Unfortunately, the Cohocton Valley chapter has come apart and is no longer functioning. So that's the bad part, but the good part is that now the Canandaigua Lake chapter is basically responsible for Cohocton all the ways from its headwaters down to about Bath. Next slide. Well, of course, the thing that really gets us fired up and interested in the Cohocton River is the fact that it's a cold water fishery. So the thing we're most excited about is the fact that we have a lot of native brook trout in the river. And that's the key trout that we really want to try to do things to preserve and protect and increase the habitat for the native brook trout. But we're also very fortunate that we also have brown trout in the river, and we're fortunate that the DEC does a great job of stocking brown trout every year, but we also have a lot of natural reproduction within the river. So we have quite a few wild brown trout in the river, and usually you can tell pretty quickly when whether you caught yourself one of the stock trout browns or one of the wild browns, because one, the wild ones are not clipped, their fins are not clipped. And then the other thing is usually the wild ones, like the one on the right there, is a lot more colorful than the stock trout. So we're very fortunate to have both stock browns and a nice natural propagation. So we have a lot of wild. So if you catch any small browns, and that also is a great key that, you know, you're getting some wild fish in there. And then just last year, the DEC is introducing some rainbow trout into the Cohocton River. So that just started last year, and they also added rainbows in this year. So this is what really gets us excited about the Cohocton River, the fact that it's a cold water fishery and we got a lot of beautiful trout in the river. Go ahead, Gord.
Okay.
The Canandaigua Lake Chapter is doing a lot to try to preserve and protect the Cohocton River and continue its use as a great cold water fishery. And one of the things we do is we work every year with the DEC to stock the trout in the river. So in the past, normally we had 2 stockings, one in March and one in April. And but in the future, there's going to be a little different stocking scenario, and I'll let Pete talk about from the DEC talk about that a little later. Well, one of the things we really try to do is get in and work with the DEC, closely with the DEC, because what we want to try to do is spread the trout out a little bit. If you don't spread the trout out, then they quickly get fished out after they're stocked. But if you spread them out a little bit, then they'll spread themselves out even further. So that really helps you to have great trout fishing all year, not just have little blurps of good fishing where people go in and farm them out right by the bridges. So I think it's real important that we work with the DEC and we spread them out the best we can. And one of the things we try to do, you can see on the picture on the left, is we try to get people of all ages involved in helping us do the stocking. Because what we're trying to do is get others involved in helping to preserve and protect the river and kind of build stewardship of the river. You know, people wanting to come out and help and preserve and protect the trout and help out and improve the environment. So that's one of the things I'm really proud of is we do get a lot of people from schools, we get families, we get real young children. And so I think it's a great program. It really benefits the trout by spreading them out and protecting them and extending the fishing season, but it also promotes great stewardship of the environment and conservation. Next one, Gordon.
Okay.
Another big thing the chapter's done is we've held a couple of real big cleanup projects. In fact, you can, and these 2 pictures are from a cleanup project we did, and we collected over 12 tons of trash out of the river. And you can see that pile of trash that's labeled number 11. I think we had like 14 piles of trash, very similar to what you can see. And it's just hard to imagine there was that much trash in the river. But you can see the way we did the cleanup is we got boats and we floated the boats down the river and we filled them full of trash. And then we had to haul them back upstream or downstream to our 14 designated trash piles, debris piles. And one of the things I ask is when we see a need for a big cleanup project, we're going to do it. Like this coming Thursday, we're going to go down and do kind of a big organized cleanup project. But I just ask everybody who fishes it to, if you see some trash down there, try to pick it up as you go, and let's try to keep the river as clean as we can all the time, not just when we do a big cleanup project. Okay, Gordon.
Yeah, okay. We had a question from Scott, who I think he answered it, but he was asking, is the stocking we do strictly browns?
No, up till last year, the stocking was strictly browns. They do not stock any brookies in the Cohocton. So up till last year, we stocked only browns, yearlings, and then the older trout. So, but in 2020 was the first year they stocked rainbows, and then they stocked rainbows again in 2021. So I imagine henceforth it's going to be browns and rainbows.
Okay,
But Pete can talk to that later a little more.
okay,
okay.
thanks.
I think, one of the most important things we do down at Cohocton is our tree planting and maintenance program. We've been, over the last 15 years, we've planted thousands of trees along the Cohocton River. And to me, the greatest threat to the trout in the Cohocton River are the higher water temperatures that we've been experiencing over the last several years. We get higher temperatures, but we also get a string of higher temperatures. So what happens is that pushes up the temperature of the water substantially. So I think our most important contribution to Cohocton is our tree planting and maintenance program. And the whole idea is to, cast shade on the river. And you know how the difference is, whether you're standing in the hot sun or whether you're standing in the shade. Well, that's the same thing for the water in the river. So we've had a very successful tree planting program. You can see on the upper left, we always get a nice turnout of a lot of great volunteers. And as you know, all our work is done volunteers. One year, you look at that center picture, one year we were planting over 900 trees in a 2-day period. So we actually got a couple of automated augers to help us drill the holes, because not only did we have a lot of trees to plant, but we had extra large trees. So we needed a little help to get those holes in the ground. If you look on that picture in the lower right, on the right hand side of the river, you can see a bunch of trees there. Before we planted those trees, there was not a single tree on the right side of the river. So you can see right now we've got trees growing on the right side of the river that are over 15 feet tall, and they're already casting shade on that section of the river. So next slide, Gordon.
Okay.
This just is a little more about the tree planting and maintenance. One of the most important things we do involved in this is we've actually got farmers to allow us to basically push the farming out away from the river. You can see that we're actually planting these trees out in the farm field. So that what that does is that not only are those trees going to cast shade on the water, but we're creating a buffer strip there. So we're going to really cut down on erosion, and we're going to cut down chemicals that wash into the river. We only can do this to a certain degree, but you can see that we've actually had a lot of the local landowners cooperate us and actually give up some of their crop growing space so we can put trees in there. So on the left, you can see how we're putting the trees out in the farm field. On the right center, in the center, you can see the kind of a buffer. You can see the corn there, and you can see the kind of buffer strip we're creating by planting the trees. And one of the great things, if we plant the trees, then Mother Nature helps us to fill in with all other kinds of native vegetation in between the trees. So you really end up with a nice buffer strip. And one of the things we've really been trying to do is whenever we put trees out there, we protect them. We either use wire cages or we use tree tubes. Because if you don't protect them, then you're kind of wasting your money and you're wasting your time, because there's a lot of critters out there, deer and beaver and so on, that if you don't protect what you put out there, I've seen a lot of places where they plant trees and the results are not very good. If you plant them, you gotta protect them. And you can see in the picture in the upper right, not only do we protect them, but we go down and we try to maintain them. We, like if morning glories are growing up on the cages or whatever, we just don't plant a tree and forget it. We try to protect it and maintain it as we go along. Okay, next slide. The other thing we're doing, besides the cleanup and the tree planting and so on, is we're trying to do some habitat improvement projects. And I'm going to talk about it a little more later, but we don't do these projects in a vacuum by ourselves. We got some great partners with Region 8 and the DEC, and we've also had a lot of great support from the Steuben County Soil and Water Conservation District. So, I mentioned the tree planting and the habitat improvement projects, the stocking. We don't do this by ourselves. We've got some great partners, particularly the DEC and Region 8, who we do all this stuff. And I want to make sure everybody understands we got some great partners who work on this. On the picture on the upper left, this is some huge boulders that we put in the river as part of the Don Graham project. And basically, as you can see here, by putting these boulders in there, you're creating better holding areas and hiding areas. You improve the current flow. It helps cool down the water. It helps improve the oxygen and so on. It really helps with the growth of the insects that the trout feed upon. So by doing these habitat improvement projects, you're helping the trout, but you're really helping the whole environment out by creating these structures. And this, the upper left there, you see that large excavator handling the rocks, the boulders. We can't do that ourselves. So we partnered with the Steuben County Soil and Water District and in order to do the equipment. And as far as the layout and everything, we primarily coordinated with the DEC Region 8, but habitat improvements also one of the main things we're trying to do to preserve and protect the cold water fishery. Next slide, Gordon.
Okay.
This is the project that we're working on right now. And this is the Crossroad project. And if you look on the left-hand diagram, this is what we're basically trying to do. We're placing some trees that are going to be anchored in the bank, and they're going to extend out into the water probably about 20, 25 feet. They're going to be angled downstream about 35, 37 degrees. And again, this is really going to help as far as the current flow, shading of the trout, places to hide. The mergansers come around, the trout have a little better chance of surviving when they got some structure in there that they can hide in and swim around and so on. So on the Crossroad project, in order to be able to do that project, it takes quite a few dollars. And so we got an Embrace the Stream grant from TU for $9,000 to support that project. And then we also participated in Embrace the Stream Challenge, where we got about $5,000, which we can use both for the Crossroad project and for our other environmental projects. The picture on the right there, lower right, kind of shows what we're trying to do. We're trying to do the same thing Mother Nature does. You can see that's just a natural log that's fallen into the water, and the currents swept it downstream on an angle. So you can see right in there, there's, it's really going to improve the current flow, improve the shade, provide habitat protection, stuff like this. So it's kind of interesting that what we're trying to do with putting the trees in the river is just like the Iroquois, they say gahato, trees in the water. That's the whole thing we're trying to do with this particular habitat improvement project. So we think it's really gonna improve this section of the river. And what we're doing is we're doing a series of 9 of these structures, and it's going to cover almost like a quarter-mile section of the river. Okay, next slide. So what we did was, basically telling you a little bit about what we're trying to do to support the Cohocton River. We've helped do projects on other rivers. We've done projects on like tributaries to the Cohocton. We've done work on Naples Creek, but our real focus has been on the Cohocton River. So I want to talk a little bit about the fishing. Some of you may have a little interest in that. In case there's people who haven't been there, one of the nice things about the Cohocton River, one, it's a beautiful river to spend time in and just wave a fly rod around. The other thing, it's really probably one of the easiest rivers I've ever fished on to wade, which in some ways is good, in some ways it's not bad. It's easy to wade because there's not a lot of large rocks, not a lot of structures, not a lot of deep holes, but that which is not great for the trout, but it's a nice, easy wading river. So if you haven't been down there, it's not slippery. It's just an easy wading river. If you want to find, I mentioned the brook trout, which is our pride and joy in the Cohocton River. If you want to fish for the brook trout, I'm not going to tell you exact spots, but if you want to really fish for brook trout, the best stream is to go upstream of the village of Atlanta, and particularly early in the season while there's still quite a bit of water up there. So if you want to look for the brook trout, it's a real prize to catch one and see them go upstream of the village of Atlanta. But also, if you earn your stripes down the Cohocton and you fish it quite a bit, you learn where there's some areas downstream of Atlanta where there's some particularly cold water, where some cold springs or underground springs flow into Cohocton. So you can catch brookies downstream of Atlanta, but you got to earn your stripes and find out where those little cold spots are. One of the things I recommend is if you want to fish upstream of Wallace, I kind of recommend you try to do that earlier in the year, because as you can well imagine, once you start getting into the summer and you don't get as much precipitation and it gets warmer, the water upstream of Wallace gets shallower quicker, and it also gets warmer quickly. So I personally, if fish do most of my fishing up above Wallace early in the year, say after about 15 June, then I'll shift and do most of my fishing downstream of Wallace, because the water's bigger, you got more streams running into the river, and it's just, more water. The water doesn't get quite as warm as down there as quickly. I recommend fine tippets, particularly in the summer. And I fish mainly 6X tippets and certain times of the year, summer, when the water really gets thin, I recommend, go to 7X. You're not talking, I'm fishing the Cohocton. You catch some nice trout. I've caught some in that 20-inch round, but that's a rare fish. So, you don't need huge, heavy tippets because you're not pulling in, routinely pulling in 20-inch, 22-inch fish. They're more 18, maybe in that 18 to 12-inch category. So I recommend light tippets, particularly in the summer. One of the things I ask is that you kind of watch the water temperatures and watch the how things have been going as far as how hot it's been and how much water's in the river. Because once it gets above 68 degrees, the trout really start to get stressed. So I recommend that, once you see that water's hitting that 68-degree point, that you try to find some place to fish that has colder water. Really ask you to practice catch and release. I really think it makes a big difference on the Cohocton River if everybody practices catching and release, then we have great fishing all year long. And you can really tell the sections of the river where people are fishing, camping along the side and just taking the fish and bringing them home. Not that there's anything really wrong with that, but you can really tell those sections of rivers that are being farmed out. But if you want to have good fishing all year round and you want to have good natural propagation, then please practice catch and release. I just put down in bold letters down below. I think you all know there's a lot of new regulations and a lot of new management strategies, and I'm not going to talk about those. Pete Austerman's going to talk about those in a few minutes. But I just want to emphasize you need to do your homework and find out what those new regulations are. Okay, next one. So these are what I consider, really, you could put 1,000 flies on here, but these are flies that I think if you really got kind of this selection of flies, you're in great shape for all year round down the Cohocton. I asked Gordon what he caught his brown on. What biggest brown on? It was a woolly bugger. So I definitely recommend you have woolly buggers, and I like to have the different colors, black, olive, white, depending on how high the currents is and how muddy the water is, how cloudy the water is. Nymphs, a lot of those nymphs are kind of ones you use a lot of places, but these are really premier flies to use on the Cohocton River. And in my opinion, the Cohocton River is primarily, first and foremost, a caddis river. So everybody may have their own opinion on that, but when you do your nymphs, don't forget caddis, because I think in my book, caddis is king on the river. If you look at dries, you can see my comment down there. My go-to dry fly, if I don't see any specific fly on the water that I can put a name on, then my first go-to fly down at the Cohocton is a caddis. And it don't have to be real fancy caddis. It's just got to be a well-done caddis, nicely fished. And so I'll even go as far as to say, my number one size for caddis is like just a little number 20 caddis and a simple caddis, but I'd have that, like I put there, tan, white, and black. And that, to me, Again, that's my go-to dry fly, and I'm a dry fly guy. So, but you know, you always got to watch the water. For example, when the Hendricksons are out, take the caddis off and go for the Hendrickson, or whatever you see, a stonefly. But I'm just saying that if you can't think of anything else to try, try caddis first. And what I'd like to just emphasize, the last point there is if you never fish terrestrials, when you go to the Cohocton in the summer, make sure you got some terrestrials with you. I catch a large percentage of my fishing later in the summer period, or say early fall, on ants and beetles. And my favorite size for beetles is probably like a 16, and ants, you know, 18 probably, or mainly like an 18 or something like that. But really, don't forget in the summer to get out those terrestrials. I never have much luck with a grasshopper on the Cohocton River, but definitely ants and beetles are really great flies to use in the summer. Next slide. Okay, I just want to quickly cover this, and Pete may talk about it a little more, but you definitely need to take advantage of the DEC maps that are available. If you look at the little map on the left, and it shows you there's a whole series of more detailed maps that you can look at. So the map in the center there is a more detailed map around the Avoca area. So this shows you where the public fishing rights are. Lots of times they're on both sides of the river, and you know, sometimes they're on just one side of the river. But make sure this is a great resource. It also shows you where the DEC parking lots are. One of the things this one talks about, the special reg area, and I'll let Pete talk about that, because the special reg area isn't there anymore. That's why I put a little note on there. Sometimes these maps have to be updated, but these are great resources to help you know how the river flows, where the public fishing rights are, or where the parking lots are. Just a great resource. And I put on this slide the official address for these, but all you really need to do is type in something like New York DEC maps, Cohocton River, and those things will pop up for you. So you don't have to get real fancy with the address there. Just type in New York DEC maps, Cohocton River, and these maps will pop up. Go ahead there, Gordon.
Yeah, I might add the maps were really great as far as the parking areas, like what you see here. I used that and then went on to like Google and the satellite imagery, and I was able to actually find that spot to park really easy with the help of these maps.
Yeah.
And
No, it's a great
that.
great resource.
Yep.
This is another great resource. I don't know about you, the rest of everybody else, but I hardly go fishing anywhere nowadays without looking up the USGS data. Like last week, I was chomping the bit to go down to the Delaware River or Beaverkill, but I looked at the map, you know, and you could see, you know, flows were, you know, over 2,000. So on the West Branch. So why go down there? You know, you can still have fun, but it's not a good idea. But anyway, so if you don't use the USGS river data, then you definitely ought to use it. As far as the Cohocton River is concerned, I use the gauge at Avoca. There's a couple of gauges on the Cohocton. I always use the gauge at Avoca as my reference point. And to me, the sweet spot for the Cohocton River is 2.5 feet to 2.85 feet. That doesn't mean you can't fish when the water's lower or higher, but you know, that's kind of the sweet spot, I think, for good wading and good fishing. You can, fish outside of that and wade outside of it, but it could be a little dangerous. Or the other thing is you could go down there and not do very well fishing wise. If you start getting over 285, lots of times the water is a little brown, the trout are turned off, or the current's a little swift to wade. And it depends a lot on where you go. There's a lot of the Cohocton you can fish from the bank, so you don't need to worry about it too much. But if you go down, say, to the lower sections and it's 3.0 or 2.9, then there's a lot of water in there and it's moving quite along, and you may be putting yourself in jeopardy by getting out there. So again, you can fish other times, but to me, on the Cohocton, the sweet spot is about 2.5 to 2.85. And all you got to do to find this graph is type in USGS river level, Cohocton River, Avoca, New York. You don't have to get real fancy. And again, that graph will pop up. If you don't use these graphs, one, you want to look at what the level is at the time that you're going, but you also want to look at what the trend is. Is the trend up or is the trend down? For example, if it's 2.8, but you see the river's going up like a rocket, don't go down there assuming it's going to be 2.8 and you're going to be good to go. So don't just look at the level, look at what the trends are on the graph. Next one.
I have a couple of questions, Al. Let me throw these up from the chat. Ted asked, have we considered mapping the club's stream improvements and the dates completed to the DEC maps? I guess kind of indicating where on those DEC maps that we've done projects.
Well, when I was putting this presentation, I thought a little bit about even doing that, but we'll take that as a kind of a recommendation we may do sometime in the future. It's like everything, you got so much time and so much energy, and I've thought about it but haven't done it, but it's probably a good recommendation.
Okay. And then Scott asked another question. Are there some feeder creeks that are good when the chocolate milk is flowing? So when the main river is high, are there some smaller tributaries that might be good to fish?
If you want to get look for some brookies or some smaller browns, you can do that. But there's some good feeder creeks, but I don't fish them a lot because most of them are relatively small waters, and it's kind of like dapping situations. So I personally don't do it, but you can certainly go up some of the tributaries, and there's quite a bit of fish up in those tributaries, smaller browns and brookies. Personally, I don't do it, but you could.
Okay. All right, next slide, right?
Yep.
Okay, there we go.
Kind of the last thing I wanted to show is that several years ago, I kind of put together this Cohocton River guide here. And so what it does is has a little compressed map, and it shows you where the DEC parking lots are, and basically shows you how the river flows. And so that's kind of like a quick reference point. And on the other side of this little Cohocton River guide, there's some information about flies to use and talks about the characteristics of the river and stuff. So, you can find this guide by just typing in TU Fishing Guide, Cohocton River, and this little guide will pop up. And if you see me sometime, I could give you a paper copy, but you can bring that up on the internet and run it off.
Yeah, I'll actually add this to our next newsletter too, so
Okay.
People can
Good.
download that PDF from there. So,
Well, next slide. Okay, well, one of the things is like I mentioned, we don't do anything by ourselves. I purposely go out and I seek partners, whether they be the DEC or the conservation district, or whether they be local villages or local volunteers. But our number one partner has definitely been Region 8. My primary point of contact for the last, I don't know, Pete, what, 15 plus years has been Pete Austerman. He's a terrific guy. He not only works with me to help develop these projects, but he's also been out there and rolled up his sleeves and got his hands dirty, helping to plant trees and do other types of things. And then I think Webb Pearsall is also on, who runs Region 8. He's always been a great friend to the chapter, but so we just want to re-emphasize, we greatly appreciate the support we get from Region 8, and I particularly greatly appreciate the great job Pete has done over the years working with us. So I got Pete on the line here. He's going to give you a DC update. Pete, are you there? I don't see your picture.
I'm here. I don't know why I can't get my picture to work, but
Okay. let
you
me
don't
bring
need to see me anyway.
Well, you don't look that bad, Pete. You can come on.
Well, I click on it and it's blocking me. I don't know why.
Okay. Take it away, Pete.
Well, like you said, thanks for having me and Webb. And Webb, are you on the line? We were gonna start real quick with just him with Webb doing a real quick overview of the new plan and how that all came about.
Yep, Webb I see is online.
Okay.
May not have his mic turned on though. So I see up there.
All right. Well, I can take it. Basically, if most of you have seen the new inland trout strategy, trying to simplify things a little bit, and also we did quite a bit of an effort to get some public feedback with how we want to move forward with trout fishing regulations and management throughout the state. So specific to the Cohocton, one of the things we had to try to figure out was what category were we going to be using for management. So the closest thing to what most of the stock sections were is what we now call the stocked extended strategy. The two exceptions that Al mentioned earlier are the special regulations areas. There was one in the Avoca area and one down towards Bath. Also, the very headwaters where the brook trout, wild brook trout are, and some wild brown trout is an exception. So most of the river fit well into the stocked extended category, but we wanted to try to figure out, is there any section we could consider as wild quality? There's some criteria for that. And it changes the management a little. And in a wild quality section, obviously you don't stock trout. So that would be a big change for if we expanded from the special regulations. So next slide, please. So what we did before the plan came out, we did some electrofishing. The lower site down near Bath, that was a special regulations area. We had enough data there. We knew that really wasn't gonna sort of hit the bar as a wild quality section under this new plan. You really have to show at least 40 pounds per acre of wild trout to classify a section as wild quality. So I knew the upper section was a little closer to that, so we want to take another look. We did 5 electrofishing sites, 2 of them right in the former special reg section, one on Cross Road and one on Avoca Back Road where the parking area is that you're all probably familiar with. And then some sections upstream where I knew there were some fair amount of wild trout, just to see how that compared. So next slide, please. So here's what we found. We had in the site 1 and 2 were in the special regs areas. We found about a little over 20 pounds per acre wild trout. We did find a few stock trout. This is brook and brown combined. It was mostly brown trout, but sites, let's see, site 4 and 5 had some brook trout mixed in. You can see we actually had some higher levels of wild trout in the non-special regs areas up around Wentworth and Jones Road. But they didn't quite hit that 40 pounds per acre with the stock or with the wild trout alone. Next slide, please. So yeah, like I said, we had around 25 pounds per acre wild trout. That led us to the decision to go with the stocked extended category for the time being from Atlanta to Bath. Because it's, we're not far off. That was just one sample. Maybe with some improvements or a little better year, we'd get a section that would hit that 40-pound threshold and possibly discuss having a wild quality section in the sort of the middle set part of Cohocton. And for the time being, we got quite a bit of feedback from anglers that really didn't want to see stocking in the former special reg section, and we agreed with that with everything that's going on that we're trying to track in that section to see if we can upgrade it. We're keeping our stocking sites the same as they were all along, and sort of stocking in Wallace and then down in Avoca and not in between for the time being. And next slide, please. So some of the major changes, as Al mentioned, we used to do two increments. We now are up to 4 with some later stocking that's hopefully meant to carry some more quality fishing in through the summer. A stock extended reach is stocked at a slightly higher rate than it was in the past. So we're up a little over 4,000 additional yearlings, about 200 more 2-year-olds than we were stocking. The 5.2 regulation is now switched to 3.1, which is 3 total trout with no more than 1 over 12 inches. Before the change, we had year-round harvest on Cohocton, where there's now no harvest October 16th to March 31st. And one thing I didn't put in there, it's also artificial lures during that time frame. So although some folks have expressed they're disappointed with the loss of the special reg section, I think some of these other changes are going to mitigate that. The overall creel limit on the whole river is going to be less, and the harvest in the winter time, fall, winter, early spring. You're also going to have what almost amounts to a delayed harvest in the spring. If we generally stock, the first stocking of Cohocton is anywhere from, it's usually late March, but it's sometimes the 18th or 19th or somewhere in that time frame. So you're going to have well over a week in March where that first increment of stocking fish you're not going to be allowed to harvest those. So all those things added up, I think, are going to help improve things. And that's all I had on the trout plan changes. And the last slide is just sort of going over a few things that are upcoming in Region 8. I can, if you want to go to the next slide, I can do that quickly, and then
Okay, I had a couple of questions, Pete, on stocking that came on the chat and also an email.
Okay.
One was from Jeff. He said, without the chapter stocking assistance for the last couple of years, did we see a decrease in fish distribution and therefore see stocked fish getting cleaned out quickly? Ralph had a similar question. Did they stock just at the bridges only, or did they spread them out the past two seasons?
We did spread them out with DEC staff. We were allowed to do that. We just couldn't use volunteers. I would say we probably didn't spread them out as well as when we have a large group like you guys helping out, but we definitely spread them out as much as we could. Especially this year, we had a few more people involved. So, so yeah, we did bucket them up and downstream, just like you guys would do, just probably with a few less people involved.
That's good news.
Yeah.
Are the Ralph had asked also, are the stocking numbers you have in this slide, is that the annual number, or is that the per stocking?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's annual. So that would be split into 4. So, well.
About 3,000 or 4,000.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe we split up evenly amongst all 4. Yeah, we do.
Okay. And then finally, Ralph's got a lot of questions tonight. What about the enforcement? He's never seen a DEC officer while he's fished down there.
Well, I have seen them down there, but they're definitely not there every day. The best thing, the advice I always give is the phone numbers are right in the fishing regulation guides. Don't hesitate to call whoever's listed for Steuben County or wherever else you're fishing. If they can't get there right away, maybe they don't catch the violation that time. But if they're getting calls one after another, this is a thing that's going on, then eventually it's going to get their attention more. So I think that, and you can tell me too, I can always pass the information along, but it's nice to call right away if you have the ability to.
Sort of the DEC guy that no.
That's a good thing.
No, I mean zip out of this.
Okay. So let's see. Let's get our next slide here.
Oh, I did want to say the rainbow trout.
His head at the bottom.
That was
No, that's I'm blanked
something
out.
that
Most of us are
happened
blanked out. This is where
when there were issues at the Rome
who are you
hatchery
talking to?
a couple years ago.
Fan.
With zebra mussels in their water supply. So a lot of things had to get switched around. It was a huge effort to try to get all our stocking done without putting fish in places that didn't already have zebra mussels and spreading those across the state. So long story short, that is the reason we had some rainbow trout involved in our stocking the last 2 years. I don't know how much longer that's going to happen. It seems to be kind of popular. It's something we could look into continuing.
Okay. Is night fishing permitted? That's another question from the chat.
Yeah, there's no, in the Cohocton, there's no time restrictions. Someplace like the Finger Lakes tribs or Lake Ontario tributary, there's restrictions with night fishing, but not in the inland trout streams.
Okay. All right, good deal. And here's your, there we go, your last slide.
Okay, yeah, so I just wanted to mention we're also working on some other projects throughout the region. There's been an ongoing effort to try to introduce Cisco, a native forage fish in Cuca Lake. The alewife population there and the smelt populations have crashed. They're probably still present, but at a very low level. So we're trying to take this opportunity to see if maybe the former native forage can take hold. They do a little better under low productivity conditions like we're seeing right now in Cuca Lake. We also have a big project to do some lamprey control on Seneca Lake tributaries and around the mouths of a couple of tributaries. We'll be doing lake trout netting on Hemlock and Canandaigua lakes, as well as forage fish monitoring, which both of those are basically aimed at helping us figure out how well or not well our lake trout stocking's going and if there are any changes that need to be made. And also statewide, there's a program called Big Panfish Initiative. So the lakes we are focusing on for that are Honeoye, Juanita, and Lamoka for mainly looking at possible regulation changes on bluegill, pumpkin seed, and black crappie to do some things that have worked well in some other states to provide a little more of a trophy type panfish fishery.
Oh, that's great news. That's because I don't think they get enough respect as game fish. Everyone thinks they can just take as many as they want. And
Yeah.
I had a question. Harry emailed me about Naples Creek, and he was wondering what the current rainbow population in the creek was, and just how that's doing.
That seems to be doing quite well. We sample it every 3 years in August. We rotate from between there, Springwater Creek, Cold Brook, and Catherine Creek. We do a different one every year. And Naples has some of the best higher densities that we see. And it also, just the sheer length of it adds up when you take the density from in the upper headwaters all the way down into the village and you add all that up, it's probably the highest population of juvenile rainbows that in the Finger Lakes trib. So and I think that's kind of reflected in the rainbow fishery right now is doing pretty well in the lake itself, and the spring tributary fishery has been all right as well.
Okay.
I do, if anybody wants to email me, I can give you exact numbers. I do have a report that shows some of that data that's a survey we've been doing since the 60s. So it's kind of neat to see how that's gone up and down over time.
Okay, I'm getting a lot of questions here. Let's see, we got any consideration of stocking more brook trout?
Probably not really. One of the issues with that is the limitation in most places that have the habitat or the water temperature for brook trout in Cohocton or the tributaries or anywhere else, you'll find brook trout, wild brook trout, and we're hesitant to add brook trout, domestic brook trout into that situation to interfere with genetics are an issue. We have tried to add a few brook trout stockings within the region just for some variety. We added Sugar Creek over near Dansville, and then there's Canoga Creek in Seneca County. But it's hard to find a good place to do it without interfering with a native population that's already there or putting them in a place where they're not going to survive.
Yeah, okay. Is there any focus on Canandaigua Lake?
Yeah, we're on like everything else, we're kind of on a rotation. hemlock this year, and we'll be doing the same type of sampling for lake trout and forage fish on Canandaigua next year. We also have angler diary programs on all the Finger Lakes. So that's something we could track annually.
Yeah, that's a good program. I don't think enough people participate in, but it's actually pretty simple. It's really just tracking what you caught and how big it is. And
Yeah, we're always welcoming, our numbers are down for that program, but it's really helpful to us if anybody's interested in that. Even if you fish the lake 4 or 5 times a year, it's good information.
okay. And then Max asks, what's the health of Atlantic salmon in Hemlock Lake?
We haven't stocked Atlantic salmon and hemlock in quite a few years. Our stocking efforts weren't really resulting in much. We're looking at some changes right now. We want to get a management plan done, which is going to be a similar process to this inland trout plan, where we put forward a few ideas we have, try to get some feedback and go from there. And I could tell you Atlantic salmon are something I've put in the draft plan that I want to see if people will be interested in trying again with some of the changes that have happened there that may fare a little better now than they did when we quit stocking about 10 years ago. So I'd say the health isn't very good because we haven't stocked them, but we're certainly open to starting that up again.
All right, good. I think that's all the questions. I'm sure got them all.
Next slide.
I think that's all I had.
That was the last one of Pete's. Did you have one on your deck, Al?
Yeah, one more.
Okay,
Should be.
let me pop this off and get yours back up. Let's see. There we go. Is that it?
Yeah, that's just kind of a wrap up. As you can see on that picture on the left, the Cohocton River is a beautiful river, but I think it's a river that's kind of in jeopardy because of the warming trends and lack of structure. And I just like to say I think we need to try to keep going and do our best to help preserve and protect this beautiful river. I'd like to thank all the people that are tuned in tonight that have helped in the past. I've had a lot of great volunteers whenever I needed volunteers, and I just like to request that when I put out a call, I appreciate folks stepping out and helping. Like you can see that center picture there. We've had a lot of great help over the years. I mentioned we got that Embrace the Stream grant for $9,000, but I also mentioned we had the Embrace the Stream challenge where we got over 5,000 people and that was basically from people, local people donating to our programs. And I particularly want to do a shout out to our local Orvis store up in Rochester. They've made some terrific donations to our conservation efforts, and that's certainly greatly appreciated. So I greatly appreciate all the physical help people have given us over the years. It's really helps out the river, and I greatly appreciate the financial donations that Embrace the Stream Challenge is going to allow us to continue all our other different types of projects we're doing. We're not focusing on the Crossroads project with that money. We're looking at all the other tree planting and cleanup and habitat improvement projects we're doing. And that last picture on the left shows, some of the trees we planted, shows a fly fisherman out there practicing his arts. And everybody in the chapter should be, proud of the fact that you can you talk to anybody along the river these days, and they realize that you guys are all contributing to getting all this good work done and trying to preserve and protect the river. So thank you for everybody's efforts, and we've done a lot of good work, and we need to keep going. That's all I got, Gordon.
Okay. One comment I'll make, you mentioned how the river is pretty easy to wade. That picture on the left, there's actually large sections of it that you don't need to wade at all. You can just kind of walk
Yeah.
the bank. One landowner, one of the spots I've gone to, he does like mows along the bank of the river, and it's a very easy, especially someone maybe just getting into fly fishing or trout fishing, and doesn't want to invest in waders yet. You don't necessarily need to get into the river. In fact, if you can avoid wading, just fish from the bank. And so I like that nickname of trees and water too. That'd be one of my hints. If you ever see a fallen down tree on the Cohocton, cast around there. So swing something or drift something by any fallen down timber you see in the river. You might get a nice surprise there, because all those trees are good cover.
Well, like Gordon mentioned here, I mentioned 2.85 is kind of my sweet spot for high end on fishing with the Cohocton, but there's a lot of places like this area where you can fish it from the shore, so you don't have to worry about it being a little fast and stuff like that. The fishing may still not be your best day, but there's a lot of areas where you can safely fish it from the shore and still have a fun, productive day out there, even when it's a little higher.
Okay, anybody else got any questions, or I think I got?
Hey, Gordon, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, this
Hi,
is Webb
Webb.
Pearsall. I apologize, I couldn't unmute in time before, but I knew Pete would take over, and as always, he did a great job. One point I do want to make, inAle's presentation, he referenced our public fishing maps. They are no longer available on the web. All right. Part of the inland trout management plan was we now have an interactive map on the DEC website. What I'll do, Gordon, with your permission, I'll send you the link.
Okay.
Get out into the newsletter, and I'll send you a link to that. And there's also a nice little tutorial on how to use it. So I'll
Great.
send links to you. But with those, it's color coded based on the classification, either stock extended. And it tells how many fish are going to be stocked, what the regulations are. So we're kind of really proud of this. Actually, we're very proud of the whole plan. But the interactive map, I think, is really going to be a step up from what we've done in the past. So, and just to take a minute, I really want to thank your chapter. It's one of the first TU meetings I ever went to back in 1998. My predecessor, Bill Abraham, took me to it. And we've just had a long, great history on DEC Region 8 and Canandaigua TU. So I did want to just extend a thank you to all your members, and especially Al and all the work that he's been doing over the past. Actually, I started working with Al when I was a bio before I got moved up to Maine. So it's just a great partnership, and we value it highly.
Well, thanks a lot, Webb, and we really appreciate the accessibility of yourself and Pete. I mean, you're quick to get back to us with emails or phone calls, and it's always a pleasure talking to you. Do you know are they going to put any like updated signage on along the river with the new limits and?
It's funny you mentioned that. We just had a WebEx late last week, and what we're hoping to do is actually have little signs, little maps with "you are here" put in the parking lot, and it will basically tell what the regulations are. It'll have the map color coded so you know where you are. And then on a lot of the streams, if you guys are familiar with our public fishing rights signs, thinking about doing something similar, but have the regulations right on the stream.
Oh, great. Okay.
People out. So
I think one of the things they did was already take down the special regulation section signs.
Yeah, we did, or we tried to get them all. So just for less confusion, that's all. And I know, Pete kind of touched on it. It was one of those things, it took several years for us to get this through. And if you know fish managers in DEC, I'm one of 9. It's like herding cats when you get us together. 9 ideas, everyone sticks to their guns, dig their heels in, and usually nothing ever happens. So this really is a major win. And, Steve Hurst, our bureau chief, just kept hammering on us that, we're going to manage for the 80% rule. There's always 20%, 10% on either side that's going to fall out, and everyone has the exception. But, we really try to focus on the 80% rule. And, we think it's a pretty good product. And hopefully, when people get used to the changes and the stocking changes, they'll agree with us. But we're looking forward for feedback, good, bad, ugly. We did go and had public meetings. We got feedback. We kind of based what we did on at these meetings. So, it came out, we really went down from almost 40 special regulations on trout fishing in New York down to basically 5 to 6. So the regulations are much simpler now. I think they're going to be easier to understand. We've always kind of placed value on wild fish, but this is kind of put it in writing and made a memorial to that. So, we're not stocking where some places where we used to stock in the past. We're really trying to promote wild fishery. So, we're looking forward to it, and, hopefully you guys will like the changes.
All right, good deal. And I think that's about it. So we're actually at our stopping point. So thank you everyone who attended tonight. And if you have any other questions, email me. Thank you,
Gordon.
Al. Yeah.
Gordon, I was gonna say, if you're a catch and release fisherman, you don't have to worry about these regulations that much.
That's true.
How many can you keep? You're not gonna keep anything, so just fish.
That's a great point. I always tell people trout don't taste good, even though that they do. But if anyone asks, no, don't eat trout. They eat bluegills; they taste better. So.
Well, thanks everybody for tuning in, and hope you all have a great week and good luck on the streams.
Thanks.
Thanks, Al.
Thank you for having us.
Okay,
Thanks,
good night,
Al.
everyone.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Gracie.
Good night.
Good night.